console-based administration. In our previous videos, we took a look at the web user interface in PanOS 8. This video, we're going to be focusing our attention into the console. Like any network device, at some point we will be using the console to perform some basic troubleshooting and configurations that you might not be able to perform out of the GUI. We are also reviewing the request, show, and test actions in PanOS 8 console. This will provide you the tools that you need if for some reason through the GUI you're not able to resolve an issue and you need to do some deep dive debugging onto your appliance. So it's a very important topic that we need to take a look and understand so we can efficiently manage our firewall. I'm a firm believer in console-based administration of network devices, but when it comes to firewalls, because you have so many objects, so many rules, so many settings, it can become a little bit cumbersome and complex to maintain through the console. And thankfully, Palo Alto's PanOS 8 web user interface is very, very intuitive. It's very summarized, it's well structured. It's not like other platforms that I work with where you basically need to travel through the whole GUI in order to make a simple object. Palo Alto's web user interface is well structured, but still there's cases where you're gonna need assistance from the console. For example, you have a site-to-site tunnel that is having issues and you might need to bounce it, meaning that you gotta, bring it down, bring it up. You can go through the web user interface and right click and disable and re-enable, but you're better off going through the console and doing a test. And we're gonna see what test does and how it can help us perform troubleshooting more easy than just doing it from the web user interface. We're also going to take a look at the request, which is basically telling the Palo Alto, hey, we need to do this function, we need to execute, for example, a system reboot. That will be a request that will be sent through the Palo Alto console. We're also going to take a look at the show commands. If you're already familiar with other network platforms, the show commands are basically to take a look at any information that you might need, and it's very straightforward to do it through the console. In PanOS 8 console, we need to get familiar with the CLI structure. And it's basically the same thing as any other network device. You have the action, you have the section that action has been applied to, and you have the element inside the section that you're going to apply the action to. You got that? So very simple. Action, section, element. Action, in this case, we have show. Section, we have system. And element. What do we want to see from the show standpoint? Is going to be the system information. So it's very straightforward. Same like any other or most network devices, structure like that. So you have first the action, then the section, and then finally the element. So in particular, we're going to take a look at show. How can show commands will help us to find information that we need inside the firewall, and request. So we're going to instruct the Palo Alto to perform a command execution by using our function, which is in this case is going to be request. Okay, so let's take a look at the console. Let's pull this in and log in with our credentials. So once you log in, and in my case, I'm actually console into Palo Alto PA01 in my HA cluster. As my previous video, we were working on an HA cluster, so I am basically doing an SSH connection onto my management IP, which in this case is 47. So that's why you're going to see if your console session is going onto a cluster member, you're going to see next to your username, right? This will be your username at hostname of your firewall and then member the firewall. In this case, we're connected to the active primary. So let's take a look at doing some show commands. For example, we talked about doing show system, and then you can press the question mark and you're gonna get a submenu of elements. So you can select from here. In my case, if I want to see the information of my system, I just type info. I'll press enter. And I basically have exactly the same thing as I have on my dashboard in the general information tab. So I have my management IP, I got my default gateway, I got my host name. If I press the spacebar, I can continue seeing what do I have. So it shows that I'm running A.1. So just for you to see that we can retrieve stuff that we know that is on the web interface, but we also can retrieve items that are not shown on the web user interface. So again, show commands are very useful when you're trying to find something that you're not able to find on the GUI. Chances are Palo Alto hidden that information in the console. So if we press show and then we want to see what session we want to show information for, let's take a look at high availability. I can also just do a copy and paste because I love copy and pasting. So we'll right click, show availability, and sure, I need an element. So we're going to press a space bar, press question mark, and we're going to see what element do we want to do a show status of. Let's take a look at the state. So let's select this, paste, and it's telling me that I am currently active, and I am the active primary unit of this cluster, and this was retrieved for the last 6 hours I've been into that state. I can also, again, take a look at options that you might not see from the high availability dashboard widget, but you can see it through the console more easily. I can find this information out of the HA settings inside the device tab, but again, as you saw, it's more efficient to do it through the console. You'll get that information faster if you're troubleshooting something and you need that information right away. So that's why it's very important to get familiar with the console. Okay, so now that I show you the show command, again, you definitely need to practice this. You can play with all show options that you have on the console. You definitely need to practice with all show commands that you have. We're going to talk also doing a request. So if we have case for a firewall that, for some reason the web user interface is not responding, and I've been into cases where Palo Alto's, not on 8.1, but pre-8 versions, the web user interface was crashed, so I was not able to get into the web user interface. So for example, from a reboot, if you have an HA active or active standby environment, you can gracefully shut it down without impacting, because services will fail over onto the secondary or standby unit. So let's take a look at doing a restart. So we were previously logged into the console on my active primary unit. We're gonna go ahead and bring the console on PAO2, and we're gonna use the command request to request a restart of the secondary unit, and then we're gonna watch on the primary unit how that goes. Let's go ahead and bring the console for PAO2. I'm gonna go ahead and maximize my console session here, and we're gonna do a request, restart, system, and we press enter. Right now, my command is actually telling me or advising me that I will be disconnected from the session after I invoke the restart, and obviously that will be the case. Let's hit yes. And right now, PAO2 will be restarting. If we go back onto PAO1, and we can see the message here, the system is going down for a reboot. We can go ahead on PAO1. Let me bring PAO1 back. Let's go ahead and ping the host. And we're gonna ping the management interface on PAO2 to confirm once it's back up. Right now it's pinging, but you should be able to see that in a few seconds, PAO2, I should say, is gonna basically drop out of the network. So once it's down, we should be able to check high availability and configure state. Okay, so now we can see that there's no more responses from my ICMP. In this case, I'm doing a ping request to PAO2, so we can see that the console is no longer showing an active status. So let's go ahead and check the high availability by doing the show high availability state command. We hit Control C, show high availability state. And sure enough, we can see here that we're running active primary. This is the one that we're logged in right now. We'll press the space bar, and sure enough, we have a heartbeat ping failure on the second unit that is currently being restarted. So that gives you an idea of how to take advantage of the request and show by doing a simple line command syntax, and you should be able to perform some management functions. Okay, moving on to our final function, we're gonna take a look at test. Test is a great way to perform some troubleshooting and verification in case you're seeing some issues in your firewall environment. Say, for example, you created a NAT rule, but you want to make sure that it's working properly. With test, we can to a protocol to confirm that it's able to connect to. For example, if you have a web server sitting on your DMZ and you're opening port 80 to the outside, with test, I can confirm that I'm able to hit that port because the NAT rule is in place and it's allowing the traffic as it goes through. In my case, with this particular model, I'm going to be showing the demonstration. I don't have a NAT rule because that's going to be discussed in a separate session, but we can do the same test as if we were just probing any internet website. So let's go ahead and perform the test. I'm going to type test, HTTP, server, and then we'll hit question mark, and you have the option to add the address or port if you have a custom port. In our case, let's add the address, and let's say Google. right? And we're gonna probe against the protocol HTTPS. So we'll type HTTPS, and then sure enough, because this firewall was able to talk to the outside, I was able to confirm that I have reachability to 443, which is HTTPS going to Google. This will be the same case if you were to point to an internal server on your environment or a resource that is open on the DMZ. You can use the test function to perform that. So you can test and make sure that it's working correctly if you're seeing troubleshooting, so you can isolate the firewall to be one of the possible causes. Also, we can use test to bounce a site-to-site tunnel, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video. So I'm going to show you real quick how to do that. I created a test site-to-site object in the firewall, but I don't actually have connectivity. I'm just going to show you how it's done. Let's go ahead and test, and we're going to type VPN. Then we're going to bounce phase 1, so it's going to be the IKE SA, and then we're going to select our gateway, and then once we press the question mark, you're going to be presented with all the gateways that are configured on your firewall. And in this case, I created one just for demonstration purposes. I'm just going to copy this, I'm going to paste it, and then by doing that, Palo Alto basically does a initiation in phase 1. In this case, is the key negotiation. Let's go ahead and do the same for IPsec. Go ahead and just delete this. And in this case, we're going to do IPsec. And then we're going to select the tunnel. And then the packet IPsec, which is our demo tunnel. Copy the whole thing. And press enter. And that basically allows you to troubleshoot connectivity by just doing this test command, which is very handy and it saves a lot of headache at the long run. If you're having issues with a tunnel not coming up or not establishing connectivity, you can confirm that the tunnel is actually active or not. Okay, so we reached the end of this video. In our next video, I will be covering device management.